Let's begin with America's lawyer, Mike Papantonio, host of Ring of Fire Radio. ringofireradio.com is the website. Hey, Pap, how you doing?
Tom, how are you today?
Merry
well. Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and your family, you and Terry and your daughter and everybody. Just all the great folks working with you. I mean, it's just you. Anyway, there's a lot going on in the news. This witness number 40 thing is interesting. I'm just curious, what's at the top of your mind today?
Well, the witness 40 story is extremely important. To understand the story, you have to understand who this person was. Her name is Sandra McElroy. The FBI proved that she was never actually at the scene of the shooting and had concocted this elaborate and preposterous hoax of a narrative on the Ferguson shooting. Why she was there when the Ferguson shooting took place, how she drove in, how she mysteriously drove off, how she saw the entire incident from close range and nobody could ever confirm that she was even there. This is an important story for a lot of other reasons besides just Ferguson. I think what this story is, it's really an indictment of the grand jury process. If you remember early on, Tom, you and I were talking about how this prosecutor was going to get exactly what he wanted. But now the story has reemerged, and you can't ignore the importance of how it's reemerged. By the time McElroy, for example, this witness 40, had finished her interview with the FBI, she had perjured herself over 100 times, they established. Her story was demeaning, it was insulting, it was outrageous, and it was completely debunked by the FBI over and over again. Nevertheless, this prosecutor who wanted Darren Wilson to walk away without any indictment, he was fully aware of all of this. And he called McElroy twice as a witness. This is an important story, not just about the misconduct of this prosecutor, not just because of the failure of the grand jury process, but because we need to take a look at how this is affecting people all over the country through this grand jury scam, I call it.
Well, there's another thing to add to this that maybe many of our viewers and listeners are unaware of, and that is that her testimony, she testified over 2 days before that grand jury.
Right.
She completely lied, made the whole thing up. She's mentally ill. Her testimony is the most quoted testimony by right-wing talk radio and right-wing websites. Sean Hannity alone has quoted her more than 21 times on television and radio broadcasts. She's the one who said that Michael Brown was charging at the police officer with his head down like a football linebacker, or words to that effect. She literally completely made that up, and she was the only one who was saying that.
Well, if you remember, Tom, the very first time you and I talked about this, where this was going to all fail, was McCullough did no cross-examining at all.
Right.
There was no cross-examination of people like this. There was no instruction even to the grand jury of how they could weight particular testimony. Matter of fact, add to that, these prosecutors who worked for McCullough were so committed to Darren Wilson walking that they asked McElroy to bring with her a diary that she had kept, that she completely fabricated diary that she said she kept because she was trying to remember all the details so it could be used as evidence. They knew that she had lied 100 times. They knew that she was a perjurer. They knew that she had mental problems, very severe mental problems that she was getting medication for. She was offered medication. And they asked her, hey, you know what? When you come to testify, bring your story with you. Bring your little album with you where you kept details about what was supposed to have happened. And they knew it was completely, utterly a lie.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, what do you do with these prosecutors? What do you do with McCullough? And you know, you can't promote perjury. There's some very specific things that people ought to understand about what happens when you promote perjury.
Shouldn't she be arrested and prosecuted for perjury, and or at least arrested and then let off as being mentally ill and have that on her record? And shouldn't there a special prosecutor be appointed to look into not only this case but also McCullough's handling of this case?
Two things about that. I thought interesting question. In my mind, a prosecutor doesn't just say, gee whiz, why don't you just come out, come up, lie. I know you're going to lie. I'm not going to question you about it, and then I'm not going to prosecute you about it.
Oh, and then we're going to release your lies to Fox News so that Sean Hannity can quote them 21 times.
That's right.
Pardon me.
The real question in my mind, Tom, comes down to what was the understanding between McCullough in this witness 40 before she walked in the room. Did he tell her that he would not prosecute her for perjury? He already knew she had committed perjury. He had already called her one time before. He knew that she had mental problems. Look, here's where the rubber meets the road. It's a criminal offense to induce somebody to commit perjury. Okay? So McCullough, we have to look very closely at McCullough. All you have to show is that the defendant, who would be McCullough, made an agreement with this person to testify, witness 40 to testify. They have to show that. There has to be proof that the perjury was committed, which there's no question it was absolutely committed, and that the statements made by that perjurer were material to the case. As you pointed out, they were so material that they have been quoted and quoted and quoted all over the media, which is that Brown looked like a linebacker charging the officer. Also, the prosecutor who goes forward with a procurement case like this, all they have to do is provide evidence that the perjurer made statements willfully and with knowledge of their falsity. She absolutely had that. She wrote it down in her journal. She knew exactly what she was doing. So look, all of the information is there. Somebody could come in, a special prosecutor could easily come in and prosecute McCullough, and they should do that. The guy is, it's a disgrace.
Is this Jay Nixon's call?
Jay Nixon won't do it, I can tell you that, but he could do it.
Right.
Jay Nixon won't do it at all. My real question is, does the federal government ever get involved in this? I mean, they can. There's a lot of things the federal government can do here, but nevertheless, they won't. I mean, my prediction is that they won't. But as you point out, it became such a feature of the case. It was so important that Mike Brown charged at Darren Wilson like a football player. I want to add this. The people on the grand jury, the way the testimony reads, people on the grand jury were asking questions and making statements over and over again, saying that we believe your testimony. We don't believe you're lying, Mrs. McElroy. You had jurors that had to make this decision that didn't even know the background of this McElroy woman. She doubled down and repeatedly allowed, statement after statement to go unchallenged. She basically could say anything because she knew she was going to be unchallenged by this prosecutor, I believe, before she ever walked into the room.
I wonder if there are other... we've had several other grand juries fail to return indictments. Do you think that there might have been similar processes where the prosecutors were putting perjured testimony on the stand?
Yeah, whatever the prosecutor does, whatever the grand jury does is always going to be a reflection of the ideology of the prosecutor, without question. And we just need to have some kind of standard, national standard, to where when a police officer shoots somebody in a setting like this, with all the hinky information surrounding it, that there needs to be a special prosecutor somewhere in the state, maybe certainly outside the jurisdiction, that comes in and looks at things. But we're unwilling to do it. We know that the data is overwhelming, that the grand jury system is collapsing.
Right. Mike Papantonio, America's lawyer and attorney and host of Ring of Fire Radio, ringofireradio.com. Pap, great talking with you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for dropping by and all the times this year that you've been doing so.